Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
We're thrilled to have on the show award-winning drummer, author, and also a motivational speaker, my friend Zoro.
Thank you, Eric. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I'm happy to be here with you this morning.
I'll tell you what, I didn't know this. But, once again, you and I have known each other for years.
Yes.
And you've done so well with your best-selling books over the years, 4 of them before this. But now with Maria's Scarf, out April 30th.
Yes.
This is 15 years in the making, Zoro. How did this book come together?
It was a lifelong desire and dream to write this book about my life story. The quick way to think of it for anybody out there, think of Rudy, Rocky, The Blind Side meets Forrest Gump. This is an epic overcoming story.
Right.
This is the story of a mother and a son, the son who has a dream of being a drummer, but he has to overcome every obstacle known to man in order to live that. So this is the most important thing I've written, because this is something that will leave people with hope and inspiration.
Well, and it's so powerful, just through the chapters that I've gone through, Zoro, but to where, a lot of people don't know your backstory. It's like even you and I that have known each other for years, it's like I knew you as this top-level drummer that was all over TV. Everybody wants them, everybody wants you on their album. Everybody wants you on their tour. And all of a sudden, when you start delving into Maria's Scarf, to where you realize, the humble beginnings and what you had to do to get where you are.
Well, and that's why I wrote the book, because I was raised by a single immigrant mother who raised 7 children alone. There was no father. We moved probably 30, 40 times before I was in the 4th grade, many times with my red radio flyer wagon, where we'd pack our stuff and put it on the wagon, the furniture, and move down to the next apartment 2 miles down the road. So I had this very unstable, difficult childhood. We grew up in Compton.
Right.
Then we moved up to Grants Pass, Oregon, where we lived in a 1962 Chevy Nova, a tent,
Right.
and an 11-foot camper eventually. So it's this incredible story of this mother's love, how she taught us all to dream big despite the circumstances look like nothing good could come from this.
Right.
And so it's a tribute to her. So I really wrote the book for all the mothers in the world and fathers, to teach them how to champion your children through the difficult times so that they can accomplish what they're put on this earth to do. So it's a story that will leave people with hope, and they'll laugh through the whole thing. It's humorous, it's hilarious, it's heartbreaking, it's heartwarming, but ultimately it's hopeful. But it's just the adventure of a kid with a dream, and then he gets to live the dream, and it's incredible. But the journey to it is the more exciting part of the story.
Well, and I think, I find your whole story so fascinating. Once again, I think this is going to have to be a movie at some point, just my opinion. But, also that you're not afraid to share your faith through all this. And certainly, you and I were talking before we came in studio, Zoro, to where, you've spoken to children's groups, and you've also been in San Quentin prison.
Yes, and I wasn't doing time there. I was spending I was spending time there. I wasn't doing time
Right,
there.
exactly. But you were sharing your message.
Yes, and because to me, the whole purpose of life is to inspire and touch as many people as you can with your life. And so I've been blessed to live this incredible Forrest Gump-like story, because I'm the kid who was digging my clothes out of a Goodwill drop-off box, and yet later in life I'm traveling with Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, the 4th richest guy in the world. Right. I'm hanging out with the biggest superstars in the world, but I'm a kid who pretended I was a new student at Beverly Hills High School just to meet kids.
Right.
And I literally went there every day, and everyone thought I was a student there. So it's all these things, these incredible blessings that came in my life through faith, through hard work, through, I'm the same dude on the cover of the book. I still have that childlike faith. I still believe in impossible things, and I still believe that if I do my part, God will do his part. Because there's a scripture that says the Holy Spirit is the helper, not the doer.
Right.
You know about doing. You have to do the work, but then when you do the work, faith is what carries us all through life. Whether you have faith in God or not, mankind exists off faith. That's how you have friendships. That's how you get on an airplane. So I just learned through my mother how to cultivate my faith in an unseeable God, and just believe that no matter what this looks like, better things are coming. And I would write things in my diary, like one day I'm going to meet the Jackson 5. I just know it. One day I'll meet Earth, Wind & Fire. I'll be on an airplane, and they'll be sitting next to, and then those things came to pass.
Right.
But so the most powerful thing human beings have been given is the ability to dream.
Right, totally.
You've dreamed of doing this show, and look at all the people you've had as guests on this
just
show,
like you.
but you got to toil, and you got to prove yourself when people aren't believing in you, and that's really what the book is about. It's about this belief in yourself that I got from my mother, but my goal of my life is how many people can I impact in my lifespan, how many people can I touch, and I figured the best way I can touch them is with a story in a book, because, you know, people always say we live off of food, clothing, and shelter, right? But they never talk about the fourth thing. Mankind lives off of food, clothing, and shelter, but also story.
Right.
Story is how we make sense of life.
Well, and that's what, once again, how your story touched me, Zoro, in this, to where, at 10 years old, you started out with a Mickey Mouse drum kit with paper heads. And
it was real Mickey Mouse.
but then you, once again, working as a janitor at the school,
Yes.
you're sneaking in to play the drums
Yes.
when nobody else is around, until the teachers finally catch you and go, oh my gosh, this kid is gifted.
And I was literally, my career literally started from being a janitor at the high school. And I had tried to get in the school band program since the 4th grade. Every year I tried to, I want to play the snare drum. And every year they would say, we have too many drummers, you can't play. I was rejected year after year. I took this janitor job, after school job at the school, and then one day the band director caught me playing on the drums, and then he invited me to be in all the school bands that I had been trying to get into, and that's where it all started. So it's very much like that scene in Good Will Hunting, where he's doing all the equations, and they're wondering who's the smart guy, and it's the janitor. But my mother always said, you were always able to humble yourself. You didn't want that job because it wasn't a cool job to be a janitor at your own high school.
Right.
The kids are making fun of you after the bell rings. But I took that humbling job, and God used that to open the doorway to my career. And in my life, I've done so many, I've walked through so many low doors that other people wouldn't walk through, to be kind to people, to give, to speak, to give them my time. And then God would open these magnificent doors.
Well, and the door, once again, that still amazes me, is then you get the gig with New Edition.
Yeah.
And from that, you're playing with Bobby Brown, you're hanging out with all of these people. I mean, you've got Quincy Jones writing blurbs on here.
Yeah.
You're on tour with Lenny Kravitz. You're doing interviews with Lenny Kravitz.
Yeah. It's been an amazing thing, and it's literally like some of the people that I dreamed about meeting, I end up getting to play with.
Right.
And but so I'll never know. I'll never know till I get to heaven what part was me and what part was God. Because we have a role to play in it, but you just don't, because faith is an invisible thing. You're going for something, and you don't know, did it happen because I went for it, or because angels pushed me in this direction and I met that person? You don't know, but it's part. My daughter is 22 now, but when she was little, and I lived here in Nashville, we used to dance together these Frank Sinatra songs, and then I put her feet on my feet. And I kind of think it's that way with God. There's a part where He's carrying us, and there's a part where we carry ourselves. And you don't know which is which, but we're in this thing together, And
that's another thing I love about the book, too, also, Zoro, to where, the chapters are themed from songs. And you mentioned Frank Sinatra, once again, one of the concerts that your mother took you to.
Yes.
And how life-changing that was for you.
Well, I was 12 years old. My mother loved all the crooners, like Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, Nat King Cole, big band, Glenn Miller. And so consequently, you end up liking whatever you listen to in your home. And so I became a radical Frank Sinatra fan because she played all those records, and she had so much emotion. She was a woman full of love and heart. And when she would listen to those songs were like life. It's like a great country song. It's like songs carry us through the dark times of our life. We identify with those lyrics. So she took me, she saved all the money she could, and she took the 4 of us, I think, to go see Frank Sinatra. It was an incredible experience to see Sinatra live, and it never left my heart. When I saw his drummer, Irv Kotler, play with the band, I thought, one day I want to be on that side of music. And I wasn't even a drummer then, but I dreamt of doing that and being that. And so I named all the chapters in the book after songs. And so that chapter with the Frank Sinatra thing, it's a beautiful, beautiful chapter.
You could have just named them after all the great songs you've played on, because you've played in so many different genres. Really, I thought at some point, you owned drumming magazines, because every time I would see a drum magazine, I'd pick up a copy, it's like, well, there's Zoro again. He's #1 again. It's like, that's not a bad thing.
And I receive all that humbly to me, it's just a platform in which to inspire other people.
Right.
Because if something as incredible as what's happened in my life could happen to me, this kid who was abandoned by his father, rejected. And when we moved to Oregon, people were mean and cruel because my mother was Mexican. And they shot and killed our dogs. So for a kid to go through all this stuff and these things to happen, well, my responsibility is to inspire everybody in my reach. And so one of these days I won't be here, but this story of this kid and this mother's love and this family's bond will be able to touch people forever. I did the audiobook, which is a 14-hour audiobook.
I can't
from
wait
Blackstone.
to hear that in your own voice.
I had to audition for my own book. Because
and you won it.
I sent in a demo of me doing the chapter because they want the best reader. And if I can't read well or don't have a good voice. But what's exciting about it and why I tell everybody, the book, Maria's Scarf, is the most important thing I've accomplished simply because there's only so many people I'm going to affect with my drumming. There's only so many people that are going to be affected by my speaking because there's only so many places I can speak in my life before it's over. There's only so many one-on-one encounters I'm going to have. But a book is words, and words can live forever. And we often navigate and guide our lives from books that are thousands of years old, right?
And when the book becomes a movie.
And the book is going to become a movie.
And possibly soundtracks from a lot of the songs you played on.
Well, and that would be really fun in the movie is to have some of the songs that are associated with my life.
Come on, I'm hearing it even.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm reading these things, you know, about the stories and all this, it's so powerful, and I think it's going to touch so many people. And certainly, not to underplay it, Zoro, but I mean, you've already had 4 very popular books.
Well, I was lucky. I wrote these award-winning drum books. It's funny. All the books that I wrote before Maria's Scarf were books that I would have just bought if somebody else wrote them.
Me too.
When I was 18, starting off in the music business, I wanted a book about how does a musician make it? How does this work? And there were no books on musicians making. There were books on the music business, like how to get a record deal, but nothing on players. And
the Big Gig came out in 2012?
2012, but it was. I promised myself at 18, when I make it, I'm going to write a book about this process to teach other musicians.
Right.
And the book became very successful. But I just wrote the books that I wanted, that I would wish somebody else would have written. And all my Commandments of R&B Drumming books were books about R&B music and drumming, and there were none, and I just wanted something to honor my heroes.
Right.
But this was my legacy book, meaning I wanted to keep the reason I wear scarves today is because my mother wore scarves, and when I was 7 years old, I wanted to be like her, and I was doing my school pictures and for 2nd grade, and I said, Mama, I want to look like you. I want to be like a rock star. I want to wear your scarf. And she's like, no, mijo, you can't wear my scarf. The boys will beat you up. You live in the United States. It's not Mexico. And I'm like, please, let me wear your scarf. And she finally relented, and she tied her orange silk scarf around my neck and whispered in my ear, one day, my precious son, you'll do something phantasmical with your life. And so when I finally got that gig with New Edition, which I opened that chapter in the beginning of the book, I say, you know, now I was doing something phantasmical like Mama had always predicted. So I wear the scarves in memory, in memory of her, in honor of her memory, and it keeps that legacy alive. But I'm living proof that all you need to make it in this world is just one person to love you. You could be the poorest person, you could be rejected by your parents, by your grandparents, but it's just one person to spark, and it was my mother. And mothers are there's a bond between mothers and children that's unlike anything else on the planet. So I wrote it for mothers that have a husband, mothers that don't have a husband. It's all a struggle.
Right.
Just raising children is a struggle to inspire them. Don't give up, even when it looks like nothing's going to work out. Love supersedes everything and overcomes all. Because we had all kind of horrible things happen, but in the end, what do I remember? Her love. Her love carried me, and love is a universal thing, and it's something that's what propels you forward, is people loving you and people just saying, you could say one word to somebody, it could change their destiny.
Right.
You know, it could negatively or positively. So words are powerful.
Very powerful, and I'm so thrilled that you're working with Blackstone Publishing on this also.
They're amazing. They're an amazing publisher.
And this is an early copy because the official copies will be hardbound, glossy pictures, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, Zoro, also for our viewers, with the website, with your social media, with everything, with the book signings, which I'm sure you're going to do many, where do viewers need to go for Maria's Scarf? Super
simple. Zoro the Drummer, Zoro with one R, ZoroTheDrummer.com is my regular website. And then also Maria's Scarf with 2 S's, MariaScarf.com is a dedicated website for the book itself. And the book will be available everywhere where books are sold, online.
And besides the website and social media, Zoro, also there's an incredible audio book available if you prefer to listen to the book in your car at your home instead of reading it, right?
Yes, and Blackstone Publishing, which is my publisher, they're the best audiobook publisher in the world. They've been doing it since the 80s when it was on cassette tape. So I spent 7 days in the recording studio, 8 hours a day, reading 463 pages. The audiobook's going to be amazing. And there's some bonus stuff at the end of just drumming tracks of me just playing and doing solos, so the reader, you know, you don't have to be a drummer, but you've read this whole story about this kid who wanted to be a drummer, and then at the end you can hear me play. But the audio is going to be beautiful, and it's be like a 14-hour digital download for the audiobook. Yeah, but a lot of people like to listen now.
Right.
You know.
And a lot of people only know you from the great music you've done and playing on the Tonight Shows and all these different things over the years and playing with all of these major artists. I think I've got a feeling this is going to be your best-selling book to date.
I believe so, because it's a book of universal themes. It's a book about a mother and a son, the bond between a mother and a son, which is a book about an unbreakable bond with a family and a kid with a dream. Those are and about the power of friendship. It's when I meet Lenny Kravitz on the lawn at Beverly Hills High, where I'm pretending to be a student, you know, and then I meet Berry Gordy's son, and the power of friendship, because we all make it in life through friends, through people who believe in us. There's nobody who's succeeded at anything without someone helping them along the way.
Exactly.
So these are universal themes. You do not have to be a drummer or even like anything in the music business to be touched and moved by the book, because it's universal principles of love and a mother and children and struggle, that we all have struggles, right?
It's a powerful testament.
Well, thank you, man.
And I think this is going to touch a lot of people. Be sure and get your own copy. The book will be available everywhere, obviously, you know, April 30th. Along with the audio book. You can get it at stores and everything, or you can go to Zoro's website. I think get the hard copy and the audio book, but also when he's doing book signings or out on the road again with Lincoln Brewster, you may want to catch him there. There may be a little table with some merch and books also. Maria's Scarf, an incredible book. Zoro, thank you so much for coming on the show. Congratulations.
Eric, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Be sure to get your own copy.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.